Welcome back again to Spotlight, where we feature the University of Central Arkansas's College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. I'm Donna Lampkin-Stevens. Today we have another special show on our retirees from the college, and this is my dear friend John Gale, who is Associate Professor of Film but has worn many hats at UCA over the years. So John, welcome back to Spotlight, and I hate to see you go, man.
Well, I hate to leave you too, and you know, very early you had me on Spotlight.
Yep.
So it's kind of nice to wrap things up. We're right here at the end of the term, and one of the nice things to do is have a visit with a friend.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So tell us your background. Where did you grow up? You have Arkansas ties, but you also spent some time away.
Yeah. Well, I was born in Roswell, New Mexico, and my father was in the Air Force.
Okay.
And then we moved to...
He was from Arkansas.
No, he was from New Jersey.
New Jersey? Oh, I didn't know that.
My mother was from Texas.
Okay.
And actually, while he was in New Mexico meeting some of my mother's in-laws, Arkansas sort of became the promised land for him.
Really?
And it took a little while to get here, but and then he left and then he came back. But then when I was about kindergarten, first grade, we moved to an air base in Labrador, Canada, Goose Bay, Labrador. There were a couple of years, and we were at an air base in upstate New York.
Okay.
Then during that time, my father ended up buying some property in Arkansas over near Des Arcs.
I mean, he had no ties.
No.
Wow.
And came to do some farming. So when he retired, we moved into Prairie County, Hickory Plains, Arkansas. And he farmed for a while. Then he decided to go back to a small farm. Just really wasn't working for him. I mean, he worked very, very hard, but you know, you're from farm country. It takes a lot of land to really make it go.
So how old were you at that point?
Let's see. When we came to Arkansas, I was 10 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he came, worked in Conway for a little while. Then we moved back to New Mexico. So we were in Roswell, and then I was outside of Albuquerque. Went to all of high school there.
Okay.
And then started college at New Mexico State, and my parents moved back to Arkansas, Conway, and stayed.
Okay.
Yeah, because they just loved Arkansas. And I followed a while later, actually went to UCA.
You transferred to UCA from New Mexico State?
Right.
Okay.
And I was a journalism major here.
So what were you at New Mexico State?
It was I think mass communication.
Okay.
Was what it was
And
labeled.
you had how many years out there?
Just one.
Okay.
Just one, right.
So you came here in what year?
Actually, I was there a semester. Came here January of '75.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was it like at UCA? And
Well, you know, I'd been here a little bit as a kid, and I remember riding my bicycle when I was about 14 through campus, and just was kind of in shock about this institution, and it was kind of magical, but also stately to me at that time. You know, and UCA was not very big at that time, maybe 4,500 students.
Now you're talking about this is when you were...
When I was in junior high.
Okay, yeah.
But when I came to UCA, it was really a 2.5, if that much, journalism program. We had Dean Duncan, and when I say Dean Duncan, that was his name. He was a professor of journalism, but his name was Dean. But he ran the Echo, and he was our news bureau chief, and he taught classes. And then we had another professor named Dorothy Finkley, and she was the yearbook advisor. So when I say 1.5, it might not have even been that many.
Yeah.
But when you came to UCA at that time, you took every journalism course.
Yeah.
It just was the way it
So
ran.
at that point, well, back up. Were you? Why did you want to study journalism or mass comm?
Well, I think part of it was just the fascination, and I'm still fascinated when I watch television news, documentaries. When I look at a newspaper, you know, I regret not having the availability of newspapers and that hard copy we used to. But I liked that people who worked in journalism really seemed to be in the know on everything, and you know, they could speak on any topic. They had a good sense of it. I still think journalism, with properly trained journalists, is one of the best democratic elements that we have.
I
And-
agree.
And for us to be guided by good journalists who are reporting the news in an accurate way, in an objective way. You can't obtain complete objectivity, but I don't think there's any better element in our society to help us be progressive and move forward.
I agree.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree.
So that's, was part of it. And then I kind of liked a little bit of the flash, the idea
Yeah.
of being in front of a camera
yeah,
and doing.
So what, at that time, was the journalism program housed in English?
It
in
was
1975?
I believe at that time it was called speech. No, speech was different. Yeah, it was journalism might have been under English. Yeah. But
Okay, because it was never a standalone department.
no,
Yeah.
no.
Okay. So you graduated from UCA. What all did you do with student media when you were here?
Well, when I was here, I worked on the Echo. I delivered all the copies of the
Oh,
Echo
did you?
across campus, wrote a few articles. I got heavily involved with KUCA at the time and did a lot with them. I was probably, in the station 8 or 10 hours a week doing that. Worked a little bit of news, had a board shift, and that was just the place to hang out, either there or in the Echo newsroom.
Was there a News 6? Was there a Channel 6 at
No,
that
there was
point?
no television happening.
Okay.
A few people who wanted to do some things in television. There was a little, as I look back on it now, crummy little studio in Burdick. The Burdick Business
In
Administration.
Burdick? Oh,
Right.
really? I hadn't
And
heard that.
If you go in there, there's one classroom that is tiered.
Yep.
And they had cameras right and left. Might have been just a 2-camera setup. Then if you look, there's a little projection booth in the back. And I think they had a little 2 or 3 channel switcher back there and a 2 or 3,
Okay.
4 channel audio board. And that's where, if you wanted to do television, that's where some of it was done.
So where were the journalism classes? Were they in Burdick?
No, journalism classes were primarily in Irby, the old Irby
Okay.
building. That was the one-story building that had been a school, I think, at one time on campus. And then they were in the student center.
Yeah.
The Echo had a newsroom there, and the Yearbook had a newsroom there. And the classes weren't big, but we could get about a dozen, 13, 14 people in there with old typewriters.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
where we worked out. When we did paste up for the Echo, we would go down to the Log Cabin Democrat
And actually do it down there.
and do it down there, right? That's what, and I think the paper came out at that time on a Friday.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but we'd go
Okay.
down there, and there was just something about walking in there and smelling the hot wax
Yep,
machines. It's
Yeah.
just-
And hearing the typewriters
Yes,
clanging.
yeah,
So.
yeah.
So you graduated in what, 78?
I graduated a year early in '77.
77.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what?
Well, I didn't know what to do. I'd been working at a local radio station, KCON. Worked for Bill Johnson, who today is a friend.
Yep.
And worked for him. And I thought, I don't know what to do. I applied for a job at AETN, but that was just kind of throwing something out. I applied for another job, I think being a salesperson, because I didn't know what to do. But came to my attention that I could probably get an assistantship at Fayetteville, University of Arkansas. And I applied, got an assistantship, and I went into their comm program up there.
When in doubt, go back to school. That's always
right,
been my.
that's right.
That's
Yeah.
always been my motto.
Yeah, well, and I've never left school,
Yeah.
by the way, but But I went there.
When were you there?
I was there, I was able to get done in 1 year, one full calendar year.
Okay.
So that would have been August of '77 through August of '78.
And what did you, the move from journalism to comm, what was that about?
Well, it was, I had a speech minor while I was here. We'd call it a comm minor, and I'd had that minor, and so it was relatively easy. But I was just 21 years old.
Yeah.
And, excuse me, and we had really good mentoring. We all ended up teaching 2 public speaking classes, and I really enjoyed the teaching. That was
So
very
that's
nice.
where you sort of found your desire to go on and teach.
Right, absolutely it was.
Okay.
Absolutely it was. And I did a little bit there. I did some television there, took a documentary film course, and took some other film courses like a seminar, graduate seminar in film comedy and film western and the films of Orson Welles. So even though it was comm, that's where film was placed.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then I did some television work too.
Okay.
And they had a really really well-equipped television studio there. And the equipment was from 1950.
Yeah.
It was ancient.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
So after you finish your MA, then what?
Well, I taught for a community college in Iowa
Okay.
for a couple of years. It was called the Moberly Junior College. I think it's now called Moberly Area Community College.
And you taught comm?
I taught.
Or
Well, I
everything?
taught some basic journalism.
Oh, really?
I was the newspaper advisor.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I taught speech. I taught group discussion. I taught a couple of acting courses.
Oh,
you know,
okay. Yeah.
and but knew that I wanted to go beyond that. So I applied for the University of Iowa, University of Tennessee, Knoxville, University of Texas, and I think one other university. And a couple of them accepted me
For your PhD.
for my PhD, right? And the one that paid the most was the University of Iowa. So I went up to Iowa. I probably should have picked a different school. Okay.
Why?
Well, I think that my interests were more along the line of what something like the University of Tennessee might have offered at that time. And I got the feeling at the time that in my program, and I may be wrong, and I don't. There were some good professors, but a lot of them were simply focused on their research and on doing sabbatical work.
Yeah.
And because I can remember standing in line to see my advisor with some undergrads for about an hour and a half to get to his office because he had 2 office hours a week,
Oh my gosh.
and it was miserable. Now I did okay
I mean,
academically.
but even as a graduate student, you didn't have a better. Oh, that's a
it
bad
was,
experience.
And I know from what I've understand from your experience that your in your grad work, you really got the attention when you needed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Oh, that is disheartening.
but it was okay. But there was a job opening at Arkansas Tech University, and I thought, well, I'll apply to it. It's close to home. My parents were in Conway, and it was the only job I applied for, only one.
After 1 year of your PhD?
After 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was the only job.
Yeah,
I
you
was,
just said, I'll just give it a try. If I
Yeah,
get
yeah,
it, great. If
yeah,
I don't,
Yeah, and I got
Yeah.
the job. I got the job, and they'd done a national search, and I go, well, okay, Now, coming from UCA, that was Arkansas Tech.
Yeah.
And back in the
Oh,
day,
yeah.
the rivalry
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people commented on that. They really did. This was, that would have been 1982.
yep.
And the rivalry was there. It was still strong. And but I went there, and what was nice at Tech, I ended up teaching Intro to Telecommunications. Those courses evolved into all sorts of things. I developed the mass communication, mass media course there. They asked me to design, build, and get licensed a radio station. And so I did that. I taught some speech courses.
So it was a combined department?
Yeah, it was speech, theater, and journalism.
Okay.
Was
Okay.
the name of the department.
Okay.
I did some set design stuff for them and that kind of thing. It was really very fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was.
And all your areas.
Oh yeah. I was 26 years old.
Yeah.
And much like Orson Welles said about a movie set, it was the biggest erector set he had ever experienced. He was just playing with it as a boy. It was a great erector set, and I could really dabble and go into a lot of things that way.
So that was what year?
That was 1982.
Okay.
And I was there, and I think met my darling wife
Yeah.
there, and we were married in '89. But
Tell me how you met her.
well, I'm going to tell you this, and if any of the audience ever meets my wife, she's going to say this. She will say, "Oh, I was a student of John Gale." Right. And actually, she had taken a course from me. One course, she had a music degree, but that had been several years before. Okay. And then she had come back to be the artist in residence at the local art center. She had gone off and done professional acting for a couple of years. She's a very fine singer and actor, and had done that. And then when she came back, I was involved in the Art Center, and we just started seeing each other, having lunch, and very fortunately, that turned into our relationship.
Yeah.
So that's how I met her. Yeah, or I met her as a student, but
yeah.
just want everyone to know that I wasn't doing that stuff. All right.
So you were at Tech from '82
to 2003.
And during that time, Holly Ruth also took a position
she
at Tech.
had worked for. She'd been at the Art Center. Then she went to work and was hired right as we were married to be the music and theater director for the Methodist Wesley Foundation. And she did that for 5 years. They had some enrollment growth in the music department, and so they just called her up and said, would you be willing to be an adjunct? So she started adjuncting some and left the Wesley Foundation, continued to work with them, and actually went back and helped them a few times. And as an adjunct, she only had a baccalaureate degree, so she pursued a master's and actually got a master's in music
from
here
UCA.
at UCA. And one of those rarities where you end up, she ended up becoming an assistant professor, tenured associate professor. So she is, I'm very biased, but she is in many ways the heartthrob of that department.
Oh.
And she's retiring here.
So that explains a lot of the reason for now. So
yeah.
So you have things going at Tech. I mean, you're there for 20 years,
Right.
and Holly's there, and you got a couple of girls, and so what made you make the move to UCA?
Well, I think several things. One, Arkansas Tech, a good school, kind of thing. But I had become department chair. Then I was made the director of the online university. I started it for them.
Which was when we were all starting our
we
online.
were all struggling. And in fact, we managed to get the first completely online degree in Arkansas
At Tech.
at that time. And and it blossomed and grew. But I thought I can make some moves. I didn't want to hinder Holly Ruth because I was, I sat on Dean's Council, and I didn't want to, interfere if she wanted to go farther. I was not. There were some things happening with that administration that I didn't really care for.
In the early 2000s.
Yeah, and I thought rather than complain and fuss, I can make a change.
Yeah.
And so I came here. And when you come in, we look at this facility here and we go, oh, we'd like to have new equipment, other equipment, and I visit with my friend John Walls about that. But compared to many, many universities, we have really outstanding facilities here.
Yeah.
And so it was exciting to come here. Now, I only came as a professor tenured in mass communication, but I came in an administrative slot.
And what was that? Originally IT?
No, we had a thing called University College.
Oh, that's right.
And the University College was to help students who didn't quite have the high enough ACT scores to go into regular math or regular freshman writing sections. So I came in and headed that. Was fortunate enough to have your old department, Mass Communication and Theater, ask me to teach a course.
Because when you came in, you transferred your tenure in to us.
Right,
Okay.
Right. And the course, it was the first time they'd offered it here. It had been developed by the old department chair and a faculty member, Bruce Hutchinson, of film appreciation. And we had Joe Anderson was the chair. He was part of that. So they asked me to teach the first section of that.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah. And and it's great fun. The best place in the world is to be in the classroom, I think.
Yeah.
But I came in, was in University College. Then the university decided to become a laptop university.
Oh, I remember that initiative. Yeah.
And that was prior to laptops really being fairly reasonable. So we came up with a plan. The provost at the time, Gabriel Esteban, asked me to head that up. And so I said, okay. So I continued to do University College. And we ended up having about 700 or 800 students a year renting these laptops. as that was going on, there was a change happening with some leadership, and I was asked to be fill in or come in as the Chief Technology Officer for the university. So on the heels of that, I moved out of University College and became the Chief Technology Officer for the university. Now, when I say that, Donna, you need to know that I have some facility in technology, but I'm not a programmer, I'm not a desktop support, I'm not a database administrator, I'm not a mainframe administrator.
Why do you think they called on you?
Well, I think they thought I could do the job, you know,
Yeah.
and I had some wonderfully strong people
Yeah.
doing those things.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so I had really, really strong people working in that, and you know, there were people like Terry Brewer
Yeah.
and Brent Herring.
Oh, yeah.
Who were just really, really strong and capable.
Yeah.
You know, and I know often they thought, you know, John Gale didn't know what he's talking about. But what I tried to do was, one, support what they wanted where I could, and run interference.
Yeah.
Because at that particular time, there were a lot of phone calls coming from some of our administrators, and at the very top level,
Yeah.
fussing and complaining. And at least I could explain to them what was happening, what we were doing, and those poor individuals didn't have to get hammered by you know, somebody calling them, no exaggeration, you know, at 6 in the morning or at midnight. Yeah.
Previous administrations.
Previous administration, yeah. That does not apply to this current administration or the one right before it.
So,
Thank you for the disclaimer, Helen.
Yes, yes. So, so you enjoyed it, but you were always hoping to get back into the classroom. Is that
Well, or back into
academics?
Yeah, academics, and I was under the provost, which is academic, but getting back into the disciplines that we love and that we embrace, and the stuff that made us want to go to college in the first place.
Yeah.
So one thing happened. They needed an interim chair for the old speech and PR department, and the wonderful dean at the time, Roland Potter, asked me to be interim chair. And I said, okay, I'll do that for a year. They did a search. It was a failed search. And so I stayed on another year. They did another search. It was a failed search. And I said, I don't want to function as an interim. Okay. So, and I was still Chief Technology Officer.
Oh, you did it in addition.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so they appointed another interim at that point, and I was going to go back being the Chief Technology Officer. And I always had the option, because I came here with tenure, to go back into the classroom. But they put David Harvey in as interim chair, just another wonderful academic. And then I got a call from Dean Potter saying, we need an interim chair for mass communication and theater.
After Joe decided to retire.
After Joe decided to retire. So Joe more or less retired about the second week of August, and I came in as the chair about the end of the second week of August. And at that time, I was working with you in journalism. I was working with our colleagues in theater and our colleagues in film. And that, for me, felt to be about the most perfect administrative job I've ever had.
So had you thought, had you hoped that might work out, or maybe dreamed it, or just it just happened?
Well, it kind of just happened. Back about 2000, year 2000, I think it was maybe 2002, I'd applied for the chair position for mass communication and theater at UCA when I was at Tech.
Oh, okay. When Joe came in.
Right, when Joe came in.
Okay.
And I didn't get that job.
Okay.
And so that had been there, and I really wasn't expecting that here. I expected I would continue to, I was attached to the provost's office and would probably just continue to do that. You know, and I worked with some really, really good provosts, with Gabe Esteban, the associate provost, Jonathan Glenn. Just
great,
wonderful. And so, you know, I had a good base there too. Gabe left and went to Seton Hall, and we had a good interim provost there. And then I was fine with the new provost who came in, Lance Grant. But I was doing this interim job for for Mass Common Theater, and I thought, I'm really liking this, and I liked my colleagues. We always have little tippy points, but and really creating some new relationships and friendships with people like you and people like the film faculty, Mike Gunter, and others. I don't want to leave anybody out. David Keith, and I'm liking how these folks work. They're looking to move ahead. They're looking to make things happen. I can dabble a little bit here, teaching mass comm or teaching film, and so I went ahead and applied for the job, and feel very fortunate in that search that I was hired.
We were glad to have you. I remember being on that search committee, and everything that we found out about you turned out to be true.
Well, I was been perfectly content to stay where I was, but if I could have created a department for me to be chair of, it would have been that department.
So what all did you teach? You taught media law.
Oh, yeah.
And media and society also, didn't you, for us, and other things?
I've taught media and society and journalism. I've taught media law. I taught media history. For us, I taught broadcast journalism production 1. Okay. So those are the courses in journalism.
But you also taught some film?
Yeah, I've taught film appreciation, classical film theory, introduction to visual storytelling, production design, and then I created a film law course. Sort of a cousin to the media law and ethics.
Did you teach any theater?
No, I've not taught any theater.
No theater.
No.
And no comm.
Comm, yeah. When I was over in comm, I taught. I do believe that department chairs should teach and really teach majors or teach those gen ed core classes. So I taught principles of communication, and then I also taught evolution of rhetorical theory.
Oh, that's right.
That was sort of the last course I did over there, and I love all of it. I love all of it.
You're just really sort of our Renaissance man, it seems
well,
like.
I don't know about that, and but and I don't know how well the students fared under me, but yeah, I love that kind of dabbling, and I love just being able to learn. As you well know, you really learn something when you teach it.
Oh yeah.
I went through all the coursework and that kind of thing, but when you finally teach it, you really learn it. It really comes home. And then
when you're doing it over and over and over again, you really do. So, what year was that, John? 2000?
Department chair for Mass Common Theater was 2009 through 2016.
Okay. And then we had a realignment that we hadn't asked for.
Right. We hadn't, a realignment we hadn't asked for.
No one had asked for it.
No. The chairs that I talked to at that time had made suggestions. If we're going to do this, this is how it ought to be done. This is what we think would work best. And that's not what was done. And that's a disappointment to me. Because I think your college or your school of communication is very strong. I think this department's very strong, but I think there could have been other things done at that time. So
what were some of those other ideas?
Well,
because as it turned out, essentially journalism and creative writing switched places, and we have the creatives and the communicators. So
well, I think I've got some wonderful colleagues in creative writing, and just some really sharp people, and I've learned a lot from them, even though I wasn't their chair. But we had creative writing separated out from writing, and they were one program. And one of the things I was told by someone else was that, well, creative writing can write scripts for film, and then the film students can produce those scripts. And it was not looking deeply enough into how the process of students matriculating through UCA Go, because most of these students who might write a script are writing them as a capstone course in their last semester. And these students who are making films are doing them in their last 2 semesters with Film Production 3 and Film Production 4. So how do you get them together?
It sounds good on the surface, but
And then the student directors want to have their own voice with the film. Now, I realize there are a lot of directors who direct scripts that don't come to them, but they've got a vision and voice for a script that they've created, and they don't necessarily want to reach out and grab another script. It happens on occasion.
Yeah.
I'm working with a grad student right now who's got a script from a writer.
Oh, good.
But,
good.
but most of the time, that happens.
Well, maybe over time, will that? Do you see some more possibilities for that collaboration?
I don't know. I think our colleagues in film and in creative writing may want to figure out some other way to approach it.
Yeah.
We've got a wonderful new faculty. We've got a lot of good faculty members in film, but a very fine producer, director named Emily Railsback. And I could see with her and her colleagues, Chris Churchill, Bruce Hutchinson, working with our creative writing faculty to come up with how can we start to integrate, how can we start to make these work together. But that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
We're chasing just the enrollment, and we're chasing getting through our classes all the time.
Yeah.
And that kind of long range planning.
It's hard to see the forest sometimes.
Well, and we have people on our faculty who are trained film screenplay writers.
Yeah.
And certainly we've got good writers in creative writing, but we've got to get those approaches that they take to come together.
Yeah. So after the realignment, journalism moved into the School of Communication with communication and public relations and the writing apart from creative writing. And you became the interim, or not the interim, you became the director, the first director of the School of Communication.
Right.
And that was tough because, like I said, nobody had really, I think they had asked for our input and then it was ignored.
Right, a lot of people didn't want that structure coming in the way they were. I think I was so fortunate at the time because journalism could run itself.
Yeah.
I was fortunate that. But I think the journalism faculty knew who I was.
Yeah.
And they really knew, and you've done this, and a couple of your colleagues have done this. You would come into me and say, John, you made a mistake. You shouldn't have done that. And I hope I reacted in, let's figure out how I can fix this, and be willing to do that. The faculty in public relations, in comm, and in writing, I don't think knew that. And then they didn't know all of the mechanisms, but
I think you were put in a hard position.
Well, yeah,
but you were the only permanent chair of the newly realigned programs.
Right.
So I think that was a tough, and it was just hard for a couple of years just getting to know people. I mean, we've been physically separated for so long.
Well, it's such I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, you do it, but it's a big program because what do you have? 40 plus faculty members. And then graduate assistants who are teaching, and adjuncts. Yeah, you've got a big program, and that's a lot to run.
So you decided a couple of years later that you were ready to go back to the classroom.
Yeah.
So talk about that.
Well, I thought long about that, and so I just went to the dean kind of late in the term, and I said, I'd like to just go back to full-time teaching. I'd like to do this, and he said, okay. Then I get called in a few weeks later, and I'm not going to. Got called in a few weeks later and said, we need you to be an associate chair for for film, theater, and creative writing. And had a wonderful interim chair, Mike Gunter, very good chair. And in knowing Mike, I said, okay, but I said, no personnel issues. And I said, I'm off in the summer. So I did that for a year.
So had you planned to come back to journalism, or what was the plan?
Well, I just visited, I
because
really
you were
didn't
tenured in mass comm and mass comm,
Yeah,
which now is film and
I could have done journalism, I could have done film. It's hard because I really wanted to do journalism film.
Yeah. And those were the two that were separated.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I'm not sure why. I love dealing with freshmen.
Yeah.
and I knew I would have a lot of opportunity to deal with freshmen in film. I had the film first year seminar that I did, but I could have been just as happy in working journalism.
And so that's been what, 5 years now?
4.5.
Four and a half years. So what have you? What's it been like returning to the classroom full time since when?
Yeah, well, full time. Oh goodness.
Yeah, a long time.
I became a department chair in 1995.
Wow, that has been a long time. So, how have you found the classroom?
Oh, I love the classroom. You know, if any of our colleagues around the campus are watching this, they may disagree with me, and they work very hard. I don't think there's a better job in the world than being a senior tenured faculty member. Now, I can't think of one. You know, and
I agree.
And, you know, and I've worked a lot of odd jobs, construction and restaurant, and sorts of things like that, and watched my parents with what they do. But it's just a wonderful job, and it's a wonderful life. I realize they're not paid enough, but you can have a good life, and so that's been great. But then getting to start to have a relationship with students again.
Yeah. Because when you're chair, you don't see them as
you
as much.
do one class a term.
Yeah.
And they're passing through, and I was doing a film appreciation when I was with film theater creative writing, so I didn't get all the time to do that. And I kind of get them one time and they're gone. Or the same thing doing Principles of Calm. They were just done and gone. So it was hard to have those relationships. The relationships you get are those students who are problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's who you get to know. And in fact, you may have done this too. We're changing our advising, but if a student was a real problem, a faculty member would talk to me and I'd say, okay, let's change them and I'll be their advisor. So I could do that, but but it's nice to just have relationships with students and watching them kind of move through things. Yeah.
So John, it's been so you came here in 2002?
Three.
So almost 20 years.
Right.
Almost 20 years here at UCA. So what, why now? Why's the time to leave now?
My charming wife is a music professor at Arkansas Tech, and she has had great success as a performer, as a clinician, that kind of thing. And she had the opportunity to retire early. So she's retiring in early January from her professorship. But I've done some things with her in the summer with some professional theater that she's done. I've followed her around. But she has, she's been engaged by a wonderful little big high school in Las Vegas to sing in a concert setup that they're doing. They're paying her travel and paying her. But then this is one of four groups, one high school and three colleges that have been invited to perform at Chicago Symphony Hall in March.
Oh.
So she's going to go there and perform. In addition to that, she has been asked to go with a group to Morocco and Spain in May. So she's going to be doing that. Our older daughter is a professional actor. She's been cast with Florida Repertory Theater in shows, I think, in March. She'll be there about 8 weeks doing 4 weeks of shows. So we want to go see her with the Florida Rep. And then I, out of the blue, have been asked to build and design a set for Friends University in Wichita.
Oh, great.
And that's going to happen in January, early February.
Well, you have a busy spring already.
But I mean.
But you're retiring to something and not from something.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
And there's I was hired summer of 2020 to be just like a technical theater set carpenter for a theater in North Carolina, Equity Theater. And COVID stopped that. But then they hired me the next summer. So I went and worked there about 8 weeks, just building set and being that old theater shop guy, and had a great time doing that.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and I like that. And I would have maybe done all of that all the time, but it's really hard to have a family life and travel around.
But now your girls are out, and you can do that. So, looking back over your career, what has UCA meant to you? I mean, you've experienced it in a number of ways.
Yeah, and UCA, I've still got friends out there from those years of 1976, so on, and that means a lot to me. UCA, I don't know, I found a home here. I really sort of hated to graduate. I got through it very quickly, but I hated to leave it. I think that UCA, I see people sending their children to private schools, and if that works for them, that's great. But I can't see a student getting a journalism degree at a private university that costs 4 times as much having any advantage at all. Any advantage at all.
In fact, a disadvantage probably.
Over a student getting a journalism degree or a film degree from a private university. And there's some great private universities. I think Hendrix is a very good school. But the debt that you'd be saddled with. Maybe if you're at the very top tier, but the value of our good state universities, and UCA, is right in that. It's just one of those things. I'm sure I'm going to be scratching my head for the next year going, I missed this at UCA. Or, what I miss, and it's harder to do at UCA, is there was a group of us when I was a student here that just really bonded and held together, and that still happens. But I think it's much harder to do today. It's a little harder to bond with faculty members. Because instead of having 2 journalism faculty members, you end up with half a dozen. And it's hard to tie in that way.
Well, we will be asking you back, and I'm sure you're still going to be on my speed dial when I need to advise or
anytime. As I always say, my advice is worth what you pay for it. So.
Well, John, I appreciate all you've done for us, and I can say that UCA and the old Department of Mass Common Theater and the School of Communication, we're all much better off having had you as our friend and our colleague.
Well, I appreciate your kind words, and I will continue. I'm on this camera. Continue to make donations regularly to the programs that I love at UCA, and I would invite anybody to go online right now. This wasn't designed to be a fundraiser, but there's the Jerry Overton Scholarship, which I think is important to give to, and then the other programs. So I will always do that.
Well, we appreciate that for sure. So, my friend, I hate to see you go, but good luck and enjoy your retirement.
Thank you, Donna, and it's just a pleasure to have worked with you, been a colleague with you.
You're my friend.
All right.
Join us again next time for Spotlight.